Welcome back to How to Tickle Yourself. I'm your host, Duff McDonald, along with my co-host, Joey of Rockledge.
Hello.
We have a first for you this week. In over 3 years of doing these shows, this is the first time I will admit that I have ever been nervous about introducing a guest. I am quite literally starstruck, but I'm going to power on through. Paul Langlois is a member of one of my favorite bands of all time, the Tragically Hip. He's a writer of timeless melodies and captivating guitar riffs. In the 1990s, my roommate Will Arnett and I could not stop playing their albums. And whenever they ventured down anywhere close to New York City, it was like a Canadian holiday in New York. They have been a great source of tickles much of my adult life. Canadian listeners, of course, don't need any introduction to this iconic band. For our American friends, let me put it this way. Some bands define not just a style, a genre, or a particular time, but ultimately end up signifying and representing something about an entire country. I'm thinking U2 in Ireland, the Rolling Stones in England. In Canada, that is the Tragically Hip. Songwriters write songs. Music fans turn some of them into anthems, symbols of something much bigger than the song itself. Go look in the dictionary under Canada's real national anthem, and I'm sure you will find a Tragically Hip song. We love the hip. We also love that they're from Kingston, Ontario, because here at How to Tickle Yourself, we live right outside Kingston, New York. So they're from our sister city. We also have art by Paul's sister, Sue, on the walls of this house. We are fans of the entire Langlois family. Canadians will also be aware of the death of the Hip's lead singer, Gord Downie, from brain cancer in 2017. Given his unique voice, poetic lyrics, and captivating performances, there really couldn't be a Tragically Hip after Downie. And so along with the rest of the band, Langlois moved into the next phase of his life, which he, I think, recently described as just sort of tinkering around with music, but not really looking to do much. But you can't keep a good guitarist down forever. After being invited to play the closing ceremonies at Canada's Summer Games last year, Paul realized that he needed to get back on the stage again, and the latest incarnation of the Paul Langlois Band was formed, featuring his good friend Greg Ball on guitar and backing vocals, lead guitarist Joe Carscallon, Matt Mulvihill on bass, and drummer Billy Anglin. They just released their debut album, Guess What, on July 14th. Langlois says he's still getting used to being the center of attention after having such a powerful frontman to play behind in Downie for decades, but he's just being modest. This is actually his third solo album after 2010's Fix This Head and 2013's Not Guilty. It's a delightful piece of work. We've been listening to it for a couple weeks here. And while we will let the man tell you about it himself, we might just deign to say that Paul Langlois might just have found his tickle again. Welcome to the show, Paul. It's great to have you.
Thanks very much. Wow, Duff, nice intro. You're good at this, eh?
Okay, and you are good at what you do.
At the present moment, traveling town to town, the mystery of the motion, right here, right now, right here, right now, whoa, right here, right now.
I don't know how you guys pick singles. The opening single to Guess What? It Matters to Me is a phenomenal song. How do you decide that?
The same way we did in the Hip. We stayed out of it. So it's smart for any young artists, musical artists out there. It's smart to let the record company and or the management decide on the single. We did it in the Hip, you know. Of course, we had say on our one record Up to Here, we probably would have leaned towards New Orleans is Sinking and Blow It High Dough, but we didn't say a word, and just like, yep, you guys picked the single. And I think they just feel it's better if everyone's involved, and they feel more involved, and hey, we chose. And so same with this one. I was like, up to you. I had no idea. You're kind of too close to it almost to choose. And it's a bonus because then they choose a single and they feel good if it does well.
And can you tell us about sort of legging back in here from the Canada Games, and you guys have now been playing some gigs of increasing size these days, right?
Yeah, we're trying to do, you sort of have to strategize, really. I mean, we could be playing clubs. We could go down to the States and play clubs, get clubs, but we could get those gigs, but they'd be sort of tiny, and it gets a bit hand to mouth. If you're not filling every club, how do you travel? There's a lot of expenses. So we just decided, let's just try and get some festival gigs this year, and in and out, and just play our show. And so we're doing basically festivals this summer, and not a pile of them, but probably it's going to be 8 by the end of the summer that we're going to do. So 3 or 4 left, and it's been great. I mean, you mentioned my lack of comfort with being up front and in the center and singing, but I'll tell you, it's been so great for my confidence to have these particular people I'm playing with. They're just so enthusiastic. They're so, they butter me up all the time, and they're just like, so I walk out there with a confidence, like probably not nearly the confidence I had walking out with the Hip. We played a lot over way over 30 years. And I would be nervous, but we were on the same team. We had Gord up front, I mean, it was just, we were firing on all cylinders. And so it was quite easy to be confident because I was confident in that situation. As a singer, much less so, but these guys kind of just pump me up, and they're so excited about the show. And it's just like, let's go do this. And so we played Saturday night, just this past Saturday, in a little town outside of Kingston, Gananoque, like at a sort of family park, city park kind of thing on the water. And I felt great, just hour and a half set, and just played mostly songs off the new record, Guess What? But some songs off the 2 records you mentioned, my previous 2 solo, and throw pepper in like 3 or 4 Hip tunes, and well, that goes over well.
You got a happy crowd. On the subject of venues, one guy we interviewed on here not long ago was Larry Campbell, who was one of Dylan's guitarists, turn of the century. And
yes.
He is now touring with his wife, Teresa Williams. And he said that in part, he feels like he went all the way up to the Dylan stadiums, the world tours, only to ultimately want to get back to smaller venues in the end, where he had a different kind of intimacy with the crowd and stuff. So you have played all the big stadiums and, now playing smaller festivals. What's the difference? Like, do you enjoy, did you want to get back to a smaller size too? Did you care?
I don't care that much. The only gig I don't like is playing a theater where the house lights are totally dark, because some theaters do that, and I can't see faces. I mean, speaking as a singer, as a person that's kind of almost hosting as well. And we've only done one of those gigs. The Hip did a few, and it was difficult because you're just kind of looking out into the abyss. People are there. You hear them in between songs clapping and stuff, but it's very difficult to play a gig where you can't see people's Smiling Faces. And all the other ones, the Hip had to learn how to play the big shows, just try and reach up there in the nosebleeds. And we got better and better at it. We didn't have to learn with clubs. It just comes natural. So, playing a club, especially if it doesn't even matter if there's only one table. Well, you just play your tunes and you look at that table and smile at them once in a while. And it was a total learning experience over all these years. So, I like playing both. We did a warm-up club show in Kingston before we started our festival run this summer. And it was great. There was zero room on stage. Our drummer plays, he's a giant, like literally like 6'5", and I don't know what he weighs, but he's just a big, scary, nice guy. And his drums are as big as he is. And basically we had no room on the stage. So there are things that come along with a club gig that make it maybe a little more difficult. Once you hit the arenas or big shows, everything's laid out there for you. So you're, oh, here's my amps on, everything's great, it's in tune, and it's just go time. But no, I think we're very lucky to have gone back.
I think you need to get down and play Levon's Barn.
For sure.
You're the right band for that place.
Yeah.
Well, I'm guessing you guys have been there. I've never been there, but I've certainly seen it. And
yeah. It's my favorite venue. It's so intimate.
Really? Mm-hmm. And is it still going?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. That would be unbelievable. But I'm going to have to do, a lot more of your kind of podcast to get up there.
This is the starting gate. You know who we saw there? One of the greatest concerts of my life, the Barr Brothers.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were amazing.
Yeah, were they? Yeah. I know them to be
hooked.
Amazing. I've never seen them, but they were? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And the venue, it's so tiny and you're just right there. Like, talk about being able to see the audience's face. Like,
yeah,
you can see every little flicker, but it's great.
So tiny, like how tiny is it? It's a barn, so it's got to be kind of big.
It's a barn. It's got 2 levels. Like they could get probably 200 people in there.
Oh, so it's not small.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so
it was Levon's practice space, right? Like it wasn't originally designed for performances. So they've got
So
we're working on it. We're going to work on that.
Okay.
All right.
Let's appreciate that.
Let's talk about some songs. Been Waiting, to me, I love it because you turned waiting for a song into a song. It's fucking genius. It's genius.
I always take the easy route. I mean, it's just there's another song in the record that I just made up on the spot without words called 638 Main. I was just like, I'll just sing about writing a song. I'll just sing about what's happening to me right now as I'm singing.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
I managed to pull it off, at least to my
no, both of them. And I want to say something about that. My previous books were all sort of serious nonfiction, right? So I'm writing about some other thing, referencing other stuff. In Tickled, I basically did what you just said. I figured out how to kind of channel my own thoughts at that very moment.
At the moment, yeah.
At the moment. And it came out like a flood. It was so easy. Once, like, you got to lock in, right? However that happens.
Yeah.
But writing about what's happening right now turned out to be, it's like, well, maybe I shouldn't be so surprised. This is, what do you know more than what is happening to you right now? Like, do you get the same feeling?
Yeah, it's a bit of a trick, really. And it comes from a deadline, I think, sure, and desperation. So like I had no time left, and we were going in the studio November 8th, and I had maybe 5-6 songs, and I wanted 10 or 11. And so it was just like, okay, I'm just gonna make something up about how it's going right about how it's going, making something up, and
Right.
just kind of. So I like that that sort of happened. Been waiting. That was for a gig, and it was quite a long time ago. It was, a couple of years ago, and I was playing a venue in Toronto called Hughes Room only because I was asked by a guy named John McDermott, who's a tenor, Irish kind of tenor singer. And, I thought I'd write a song, and a couple of months went by and I hadn't written anything. And it was an ice storm-ish kind of thing around here. And I was sitting outside just getting pelted by ice rain, as one friend calls it. And I just had to come up with it. And it's just like, you know what? Basically, I'm saying, I thought it would just come to me. And
right. I love the lyric you're talking about. You take refuge in silence, which I absolutely love that line. But you also said leaving it up to the spirit world hasn't worked out. I was like, is that like a dark night of the soul, or were you waiting for inspiration?
Yeah, and just nothing was working. So I just decided to write about nothing was working. And I wasn't actually even picking up a guitar. I honestly thought a song would come to me in my head, and it didn't. And now we're at 2 a.m, and I got to go to Toronto at 7. And it's just like, okay, I'm just going to pick up a guitar and do this.
We set a strong intention. It worked.
Oh, thanks a lot. I appreciate that.
Desperation Calling is a similar theme where you are visited by desperation, who's like, hey, buddy, what's up? It's been a while.
Yeah.
Love the switching perspectives in that. Such a cool song.
I'm glad you caught that, with the, I'm glad you caught the switching of perspectives, because when we, the artwork, a very good friend of mine who I play music with a lot too, Jim Tidman, took all the pictures and conceived of the cover and the pictures on the inside too. And he did a beautiful job. And then I was working with the designer for the record company I have that signed me for this. And his name was AJ, and we didn't meet in person. He sounded very young. Like he sounded like early 20s. And I had, like, in brackets, desperation, colon, to tell people that, okay, this is desperation calling. So these are desperation's words. These are this guy's words. And then it said me in brackets, and then I'd be like, make yourself at home and all that kind of stuff. And then finally at the last minute, I said, AJ, I don't want to spoon feed these people, like I'm hopeful that they can figure out desperation talks and I talk, and he talks and I talk, or it could be a she, it's a thing. But I tried to explain this to a crowd in Gananoque, and it happened to be a French festival. And it didn't go great. I kept it short, but I just tried to describe that there was desperation actually called me on the phone.
I think my training as a Bob Dylan fan helped me to spot that one out of the gate.
Maybe it does. I'm very happy you spotted it.
It's shifting. He showed me shifting perspective in music, like Brownsville Girl, all that stuff. And I could it jumped right out at me. Me
too. I mean, it was my biggest influence when long before I picked up a guitar, because I didn't start till I was 19. Bob Dylan was the guy, and he taught me about lyrics. So you even mentioning him is just awesome to me.
I was going to ask how you got started, because you mentioned in something I read that you weren't a musicologist. No. Like a lot of the people you played with, you didn't grow up that way. So what did bring you to music and to playing and to all of this?
Well, like, to be honest, I was running out of money. I was I was in first year university. And, we have a thing called OSAP up here. So they basically lend you $3 or $4 grand. And I was through it by mid-October, and, school started at the beginning of September. And I asked my mom, well, I told her, listen, I'm running out of money. Is there any way I can, get a loan? I'll pay back, in the summer when I get a job. And she's like, no. And I said, okay. But she'd always said, you should play music. You should sing. You got a nice voice. And I'm like, how do you know? And because I've heard you sing and you could say you should do it. And I was like, nah, it's not really for me. Anyway, this guy on my floor had a guitar for sale. And I had no money for Christmas presents, and I was coming home. So after I bought the guitar for $100, that was it. And I just decided to learn a song for her. So there was a Beatles book that my roommate had, like a guitar chord book. So I just started playing and learning a song with the intention of playing a song for her for Christmas instead of buying something. And
oh my God, that's so sweet.
It literally happened. And it went okay. Like, she was lovely. It's not like she was mean about, she was doing me a favor by saying no.
Well, obviously.
And so I started music really because of her.
Wow.
Because she was relentless I was 19 when I started playing guitar, but she was on me since I was 13 to, would you just play? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so I credit her all the way.
That's a great story.
You
never know.
I woke up this morning, we were in the bedroom, and Joey said something to me, and I looked over, I said, quit hollering at me. And I was like, wait, who sang that again? And I was like, John Prine.
Yes.
You are also point to Prine as a influence.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
What about John Prine?
Well, I think he, that was a thing. I wasn't a big fan of my roommate. He was in second year. So it's the same time period. Kind of played Dungeons and Dragons, and they, he and three other nerds would do it like the bed is like 20 feet away, and I just have to roll over and ignore it. And but he had an album collection, and John Prine, there was a cover that stuck out to me. I'm like, what's this guy sound like? He's sitting on the hay bale, whatever record that is.
Right.
And I put him on, and it was like he was singing to me. It was like this guy, because I was already into Dylan, and I knew pretty much everything Dylan had done, but I'd never heard of John Prine. And it was like, oh my God, this guy is almost even better, like for my ear, just because he just tied up everything so well, I think, lyrically. Whereas Dylan leaves you hanging, and of course you're trying to figure it out, and he's amazing, top of the heap. But John Prine would tie them up in a little bow, like just a little story about,
for sure,
drive-in or whatever. I love that song where he goes to get the popcorn and comes back and she's in some other guy's car, and it was just much more kind of reality based. So he was the best. We were actually going to go see him in New York City, and unfortunately COVID hit and passed away, so I never got to see him. But
I saw him once at the Capitol Theater with my brother Steve about 10 or 12 years ago.
Did you?
And he was, whatever that health issue is, he had like thyroid issues or something.
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah.
So he was a little constrained.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't the John Prine in my dream concert, but it was everything else that you could have asked for. I was like, thank God I saw him before this is over. Because I agree with you. I think his lyrics are neater, funnier, and Dylan's hilarious, but Prine can be funnier.
Yeah.
He's also kinder, right?
Yes.
There's like a sweetness to him, like a gentleness or something underlying all of it.
No question. And such a dude when he was younger. I mean, you used to be able to find a lot on the internet. So this is years ago, but I found some stuff, John Prine, like with him, just, I don't know, maybe you can still find it, but he's playing in a kitchen. Like he was just such a real dude, and so happy. And his kindness, actually, as you say, Joey, it really, it comes through in these things that, I mean, a lot of this stuff, the internet, and that's kind of been washed clean. So I don't know if you could find it, but anyway, he just seemed like the real thing. And he's a mailman. You know, he was a mailman. It's just like, and just singing his songs as he's in Chicago. And it's amazing he's from Chicago. I would have guessed Nashville every day, or Memphis, or whatever.
Right. He's from Kentucky.
Chicago, and it's just anyway, he was amazing. And he is on the playlist always, and always Campfire. You know, I cut my teeth on playing his songs.
What's the one Joey, that I used to get you into him? Is it
Clay
Lake
Doves? Marie? Oh, Lake Marie. Yeah.
Lake Marie.
No, Duff introduced me to John Prine. I was like, how do I not? How have I missed this? So it's like this whole world opened up. It's amazing. Like I love, and he's so singable too. I love to sing along. He's great.
So many, and it was the same for me. And I credit my roommate, and it was just like, wow, this is a whole new world. This is someone I really, really will always love.
Blessings come in strange places, right? Your mom not helping you out was a huge blessing. Yes, your roommate.
Yeah.
You never know.
Never know. Our
friend Crazy Legs Conti taught me not to say that this or that is my favorite thing. Right? I try not to say that anymore.
Yeah. I think that's smart. I think that's good advice.
So I'm just gonna say this.
Okay.
The Face of Time is a pretty awesome song on your new album.
Excuse me. Well, thanks. Yeah, I don't know what that one really was about. Well, it's about commitment, really, I think, in general. It's just like, we're going to do this. And even Joanne knew it was about her and me. And there's a lot about her and me on there, you know. But that one in particular is kind of like, hey, let's just get to the softer side. We got to just keep it up, you know? And so, yeah. And it was supposed to be a quiet little number, but damn that Bill Anglin again, drummer, you know, it's just like, this was going to be like a moody little number. Like I'm just kind of like, plink, 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 and singing quietly. And all of a sudden he's like, boom, you know, it's just, but it really works as a rock tune for me. I love playing it like that, but I really intended it to be far moodier.
And when I was writing Tickle, Joey managed to sneak in and take over huge parts of that book. Suddenly found I was writing about her all the time. I'm
the
like,
best part.
Is this the most important thing to me?
Yeah.
Right. The best part is what's it called? The acknowledgement. No, it's not acknowledgement. It's in the beginning when you dedicate the dedication.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And what did you say, Duff? It was so nice.
Must have been.
It says, for Joey, you were right.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect.
I just like to hear him say it. That's all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
And even though we're not picking favorites of hip songs, I got to say, I heard you talking in an interview where you're talking about a big transitional moment for the hip. Ahead by a Century has got to be one of the most beautiful songs of all time. And as you said, it's like where kind of softness got into your music.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
More.
Yeah. It was a different song for us. And like a different.
He played it for me and teared up.
For me?
When he played it for me, he was teary eyed. Like it got him.
Yeah.
It's very sweet.
Always.
Yeah. It was kind of, different sort of, we kind of knew it at the time. It was kind of like, not necessarily a different style, but a different style. You know, it was just kind of like, okay, this is a weird one, like very different. And so, and that's the last song we ever played together. And that was intentional because we knew it was some sort of as close as we could get to universal and communal sort of song. So it always meant a lot to us. And I would say pretty rare we didn't play it after we had recorded it. It was kind of like, okay, this is welcome to the staple section of the set.
Okay, but so can we explore that just briefly? Like clearly, so our taxonomy here is the tickle, right? It's the tickle of existence.
Love it.
So as a band that wrote and performed dozens of great songs, what is it like? There's something there that, as you say, it was different, and it got to like even just the guitar at the beginning, right? It's like it instantly, as a listener, it's like, here we go again. As a performer and songwriter, what is that? What do you think you captured?
Well, I would give a lot of credit to Johnny and that little drum machine, which we'd never done before. Like, he plays the drums on it, but we're all playing to this little drum machine. Once Johnny kicks in, the rest of us forget about the drum machine. We just play to Johnny. But that was interesting. I mean, he and Robbie kind of took what was kind of an acoustic-y song with no particular direction, which I would call like Wheat Kings, like that, or whatever, just kind of like, okay, here's a song that seems to be okay. And they just started experimenting one night with trying to make the song come out of its shell somehow. And so I think starting with that little drum machine really helps. And then, there's an electric part I come in with later that intensifies things. And, there's harmonies and excuse me, the the subject matter too, and the singing, of course. But it's elusive. A song's elusive, just like I'm sure a book is elusive. Yeah, Duff. I mean, it's kind of like they're either there or they're not. You start beating that dead horse, and most times it's not going to work out. It's got to be kind of, and that was one of those kind of songs, and we knew it. We knew it at the time.
It's a conduit.
Yeah.
What are you listening to now?
Like, not too much. I kind of, most of the music I listen to, I'm floating around YouTube or whatever, watching, old John Prine stuff or, Dylan stuff. Jason Isbell, I love. I just think he is a notch above as far as his songwriting and performance. Saw him in New York City at it's a pretty new venue, Pier 21.
Pier 17.
Pier 17. Why do I think 21? Pier 17. And
it's
wow,
great.
he just blew. And I was with Joanne, but also with Johnny. And he was just so great. So he'd be my favorite. I keep in touch with local acts, just if they're playing, I'll go out and see some local acts. And Greg Ball's one of them, who's in my band. So he's temporarily on hiatus, and he would love to be on hiatus forever from Greg Ball. So he says. But so I'm not like overly current, but our daughters, when we go see them or when they're visiting, they take over the music, and they play interesting things too. So, yeah.
And what in your life right now, this album not included, but what are the things in your life that sort of light you up, like light your soul up? What tickles you?
Funny, I would say being social, for sure. I mean, older now, so it's like dinner party, cottage, campfire, I mean, we love it at the cottage. I love it at the cottage, and I love a campfire where the guitar is being passed around. That's one of my favorite things ever. And I have strict rules, show respect. Don't talk while he's singing. 2 songs, or where she's singing, 2 song maximum. These kind of, and the girls are on the tree. Painted on the tree. Be respectful. So anyway, I love that. More than anything, I mean, I'm just very lucky. I have so many friends, and I love family too. I have 3 great sisters, one of which, Duff, you're very good friends with, and so family, of course, but I'm just so blessed with friends. So I would say that's my favorite thing, is to get together. And we got a spot that a few of us will meet in the afternoon at a place called the Red House downtown, which is just a few blocks away from me. And so that's probably my absolute favorite thing, I would say.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you sit around the campfire and you tickle yourself.
Absolutely. No, I love it. And I love listening. I mean, I'm happy to take my turn, but there's so many people that play music that I know, and it's just like, wow, I just love just sitting back and listening to someone.
You know what's wild too is same. I love the exact same things you talked about. And the hip has been the background music for a lot of that too. So you guys were writing the background music for the Ticklish experiences. Thanks for that.
Well, thank you. And it's always been, because you run into people or at shows or whatever, and they'll be like, yeah, we play you on the dock, or, somehow we got very associated with cabins and cottages and lakes and dock parties. And the only time it was a curse was one time we played Molson Park, and Joanne and I stayed in a motel like just adjacent to Molson Park, and every room was playing the Hip, cranking. It was after the show, and I was scared shitless. Like, it was just like, fortunately, you could smoke in the rooms back then, so I didn't have to go out to the motel. But it was just like, oh my God, I didn't think they were going to kill us or anything, but it was just like, I cannot show my face. Everyone's cranking, blowing high dough. It's just like, this is very uncomfortable. But then gradually, as you get older, you appreciate it more, and we had some good times. Like, Robbie would love to do this, and I did it with him. Like, if we played a venue, I remember doing it in Newfoundland once, and maybe the other one I remember was out east as well, Moncton or something. But go around the campsite after the show's over, go around all the campsites, because there's a million campers, and then just drop by a campfire, look for a campfire, and then just sit down there. I mean, Robbie's to be avoided. Like, I wouldn't walk downtown with him or anything, because he's just so Robbie Baker that people that just come up to him, I can kind of slip down. But anyway, really learn to enjoy it, that connection that people have with the music. And those are the ways to really, in your mind and heart, appreciate it. Because for the most part in my life, I totally forget about it. I it's just not even a part of anything, unless someone says, hey, I really, thanks for your music. And it's like, oh, yeah, right. I was in that band.
No, and listeners, let's be clear here. Tragically Hip are one of the greatest rock and roll bands you'll ever hear. But the Paul Langlois Band, which is why we're talking here today, their album Guess What, which just came out, it's got several standouts on it, none of which are my favorite, but several of which I will point to and say those are great songs. So you still got it. And thank you for A, all the tickles over the years, but B, for joining us today. It's been a fucking blast.
Well, Thank you, Duff and Joey. And hey, you were roommates with Will Arnett? Can you get me on his podcast?
You know what? Maybe we'll send him a link to this one. But yes, of course.
In New York?
Yeah.
You know what? He's been so great. He's actually in our documentary, like a documentary's being made. It's kind of like 4 episodes, hour episodes. And Gord's brother, Mike, older brother, Mike, is doing it. And so we've kind of got, it's not due until like next September. I would not want to be Mike, you know, because it's kind of beginning to end. But Will is in that a couple times, and he's just speaking so highly of us. And
oh my God, we went out, we saw you on Long Island. You played some club in Long Island one time. We saw you at Hammerstein. We saw you at.
So he's not lying.
Yeah.
No.
Because he gives the impression that he saw us a lot.
Oh no, he did. He actually, you know, I was obviously aware of you guys just by the virtue of being Canadian, but Will was obsessed, and Will dragged me into the music in a way that I might not have gotten, you know, without that help. He's a huge fan.
Yeah, it really comes off that way, and I was just like, wow, we never really. Maybe we met him once, but I'm just like, really? Is he really a fan?
We'll
make that. Fan, but did he really see us more than once?
Yeah.
Were you guys roommates when they evidently the Hip stayed in your room in your apartment when you weren't there?
That was later on. Okay. When I was living with Gabrielle. Will's favorite song for a long time. Now I'm speaking for him. Hey, Will.
I love it.
Was Wheat Kings. He loved Wheat Kings.
Oh, nice.
Like it was on all the time.
Easy to play.
No, he's a huge fan. We're going to make that connection.
Okay, well, that's neat. Say hello. And if he plays guitar, that's the easiest song ever to play. And that was no accident. Let's write an easy one.
So, listeners, you heard him here today. Maybe next you'll hear him on Will Arnett's podcast with on Smartless. Will, if you're listening, get your booker on this. Paul, thanks for joining us. It was great.
You know what?
Thanks, Paul.
It's so great to see you again, Duff, and great to meet you, Joey. And
you too.
Yeah, this was fun. So we really appreciate it. Nice podcast.
Thanks.
Cheers, dude.
Okay.
Bye.
We'll see ya.
Okay, Paul Langlois.
He's so nice. Like, what a nice human.
And it's just kind of a little surreal. You know, we don't hang around with a lot of famous people, but also just someone who is sort of in the background of a lot of your life. Right? Like he provided he's one of the soundtrackers of my life, and not in a you know, just heard it in the bar thing. And to reiterate, Will Arnett's a huge Tragically Hip fan, bigger than I was. But I was a big one too. If they came down to New York City, we were going. And just so great to see him, you know, still doing his thing. The death of Gord Downey was, you know, it's basically like it was a national day of mourning in Canada. But Paul still got it, and the stuff on Guess What has echoes of the Hip a little bit, but also clearly, you know, he's got his own thing going on, and there's some fun stuff, some fun lyrics, and I really especially love the parts where he's like working out the fact that he's trying to write songs and they're not coming to him, because it's a genius thing to do, right? You want to catch the present moment, and instead of being frustrated that the thing that you wanted to be there wasn't there, he switches and captures what's happening in the present moment. It's right. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
It was fun that he and especially in that other song, Desperation Clawing, I'm psyched that that he saw that I caught what he was doing there, because it's pretty interesting shifts of perspective.
And you'll be happy to know that my first thought when you were talking about that was Brownsville Girl. I think it's Brownsville Girl.
Right, exactly.
Where he goes back and forth and you never really know who's talking.
Yeah. So, okay, moving right along here. I've got a thing for you here. This isn't one of our counterintuitive ones, but it falls into the realm of things that you and I like to talk about. So that's why I've got it for you. I was reading this book this week called Sage Mukundraja's Paramamrita, Pointers to Self-Realization, translated by one of my favorite Vedanta sages, Ramesh Balsekar. And he used this great line in here. So he's talking about how the way to an enlightened state is you got to pull away from the senses, right? And you got to turn back within to the source of everything. So I'm going to read you a couple lines, but the punchline's at the end. He says, instead of looking ahead, one must look back and seek the source so that one comes to know one's true being. What one sees from that source is nothing but all-pervading oneness, where there is no Maya, no non-knowledge, something immeasurable and which one can know or experience only by oneself. That knowledge is self-effulgent, like an extremely thick heap of profound happiness, the realization of which means the end of the cycle of birth and death. So, what are we looking for, people? You want to find within you that extremely thick heap of profound happiness.
That's amazing. I love that.
Right? We called it
Delight.
The slab for a while. It's a heap.
Right. A heap of profound happiness is it's more inviting than the slab.
Right? The slab seems a little cold. All right. So listeners, to close off today, speaking of Tickled, I wrote in there, any of you who haven't read it, book with haste, go get it now. I wrote about Joey a lot, and I was reading, she introduced me to the poet, Hafez. What is he? Persian?
Yep.
Where is he from?
Persian, 13th century.
Okay. So, the translations by Daniel Ladinsky are all wonderful. I have a tattoo that comes from one of the Hafez poems, that Joey also got. But here he's talking about Joey. This poem's called What Happens. What happens when your soul begins to awaken, your eyes and your heart and the cells of your body to the great journey of love? First, there is wonderful laughter and probably precious tears, and 100 sweet promises and those heroic vows no one can ever keep. But still God is delighted and amused. You once tried to be a saint. What happens when your soul begins to awake in this world to our deep need to love and serve the friend? Oh, the beloved will send you one of his wonderful, wild companions. Like Hafez. So he dominates himself. But he sent me you, Jogi. He sent me you.
That one got me for sure. Oh, I love him.
Thanks for listening, folks. We'll be back with you in a week.
Bye-bye. You've been listening to How to Tickle Yourself with your host, Duff McDonald, and me, Joey of Rockledge. You can help us by liking, subscribing, and sharing this podcast with others. You can talk to us and see what else is happening on Instagram and Facebook at How to Tickle Yourself. This program was recorded in Studio B of the historic Rockledge Recording Studio. Right Here, Right Now, our original 16-part theme music, was written and recorded by the legendary Paul Reddick and Kyle Ferguson of the Sidemen, with Steve Mariner on bass and drums and in the mixing room. This podcast is produced and distributed by Storic Media. Our editor is Oscar Desiderio. Our producers are Kristen Verbitsky and Chuck Labella. For more information, visit storicmedia.com. That's STORIC media.com.